Welcome to the show. I am, just enjoying a beautiful winter's day here. And I just want to share some things that I have been considering and thinking about. And I think that it's something that could help you. And so I've really been considering the full expression of what that looks like for me to be fully expressed. And as I've been reflecting back, into kind of just like my past or, when I have been fully expressed and when that has been valuable to the marketplace and somebody has then exchanged, money. They've paid me for my creative service. They've paid me for my output, for my expression, and because I am creative, it's a creative expression, even though I've worked in corporate and sales and things like this. But, I'm at a stage, in my career where I'm looking to be fully expressed. And so welcome to the show this week, Create Your Work in the World. And I just actually wanted to share with you, I have a new private immersion, private mentoring which is called House of Maestro. And it's really just a container and an opportunity for you to come into a space where you can really discover what being fully expressed in the marketplace could look like, taking, all of your experiences, your wisdom, your skills, and if that was to be I kind of liken it to Scrabble when I enjoy playing Scrabble, but when you have all those letters of the alphabet, 26 letters, and then you have to make different words with them. And I feel like um, with career and work at the moment, within the world, that there's a transition happening at the moment, and you have an opportunity to take some of those letters that have formed up your experience of what career, vocation, calling, work, income, all that stuff has looked like in the past. And you've got permission to rearrange the letters and do something brand new if you chose to. And the vehicle that would come through would be, if you were to work with me, would be unlocking you and bringing you into full expression. So expression of, your deepest passions, desires, the things that really light you up. And then also, yeah, creating that fertile environment for, those new shoots of life to kind of come forward in your vocation and your calling, your true calling, your soul calling, whether it's the Holy Spirit calling you, but to the work that you want to create in the world. And so, do check it out. I'll drop the link below to House of Maestro. And if you'd like to have a chat to me about what that could look like, feel free. I'm happy to jump on a call also. So it's just really relevant to what I've been thinking about. So, I might just go back a bit. And if you're new here and it's the first time you've tuned in to the Spark Joy podcast, I'm somebody who is really delving into, and it's also my own experience as a leader, is that I have been returning to my roots, returning to my creative roots. And through work, I've had different experiences. But as I walked this week, the question that came to me was, do I believe in my own work and the beauty of my own work to be rewarded, to be paid for it? And it made me reflect back actually to a time earlier in my career when I was a professional photographer and I was the youngest in my class actually because I was 17 when I got accepted to School of Art and Design to and they only accepted 12 students a year. And in the course in the school, this art school I was going to, and there were about 1,500 applicants. So I was literally just I was a very mature 17-year-old. But very quickly I started making industry contacts and ended up making a name for myself even before I graduated as a professional photographer and started my own wedding fashion portrait business. And so that was really the first time that I got rewarded for and paid for my creative work. And at the time, there's something about when you're young and fresh, you don't know any different. Maybe you haven't been knocked back, and and you've got that opportunity to try something. And so I just created these packages. I looked around the market, and I think my packages were something like, $1,500, $2,200, and then maybe like over $3,000. And this is back in 1999. So I was, had some premium packages, and I would meet these bride and grooms, future ones, to photograph their wedding, and I'd show them my creative work, my portfolio. I'd have a meeting, find out what they wanted, and quite often they would take my top package, and that was, the beginning to, being in business and somebody actually seeing value in the creative work that I was doing in the world, and then wanting to pay and not pay a deposit. And yeah, so I was kind of taking that idea this week, and I'm no longer a photographer, and I've done many other things in my career. I'm now, multifaceted, multi-passionate. And one of the areas, that I'm really wanting to support people is to create their work in the world. I'm interested in vocation and calling. And once you step into that area, if you have been an employee in the past, then I was kind of like just toying with this idea that people, put their trust in an employee. They'll sign, sorry, in an employer, and they'll sign a contract to go and work for, as an employee, and the employee sees value in their work based on their interview skills and, their work history, that they say, we will pay you X amount for the next 12 months. And then that gets paid, monthly or weekly or whatever the pay schedule. But that is one side of the coin of having your work rewarded and paid for in the world. And so, really, when you think about it, it comes back to the deepest levels of your own self-belief. And so, like how you value and see yourself, that number one, you would agree, firstly, to the work that you're doing, that you already maybe subconsciously and through your thoughts, beliefs, of what's possible, you have already set, and maybe the marketplace, if you're in a job, there's a ceiling to perhaps what you're doing. But in your own subconscious, you believe that your belief is what you're being paid in your job is, it's a match kind of thing. And so and as I say, as myself, as we elevate our belief, and our self-identity and our self-belief of our work and what I could get paid. Um, yeah. So I worked for a coaching company in San Diego, and the coach, she was really gorgeous, kingdom businesswoman. She looked like Barbie with big blonde hair, very dynamic, very successful, had like 40 staff, had $40 million in coaching offers that she had sold. And so I was just on her enrollment team, but I kind of got, a behind the scenes look at her business. And so one of the things that she was doing is that she was selling VIP days, and then you would have access to her for a year for 50,000 US dollars. Now, in her world, that was not uncommon. That was normal. That was for close proximity to be able to work with her. And part of the reason that she believed that she was worth that is that she had invested the same amount of money in other coaches to work one-on-one. And that's kind of how she kind of got started. I don't know if she put $50,000 into it, But it just comes back to this idea that the amount you charge directly correlates to your own personal self-belief and what your work's worth in the world. And so I would like to suggest that some people would be grossly uncomfortable, that it would mess with their subconscious, it would mess with their sense of identity if somebody came to them and said, next week, we want to pay you, and let's say they normally get $10,000 a month, but your work is so valuable to us and what you're doing that we want to pay you $30,000. It would be a shift for someone to kind of reconcile that. And so, yeah, it's just yeah, I feel like that God is inviting me to actually increase my self-belief and align it with who He said I am. And He's asked me to step forward in a way because God has said that He believes in what He's put inside of me, and He wants me, um, to go and demonstrate it because He believes in me, He trusts me, and that I should trust myself. And so that's really the message that I wanted to, really bring through to you here on the podcast today. And, that I am in the secret place. And this is not something, obviously I'm broadcasting it from this podcast today, but, I'm aligning myself. And this is not always easy for me to do this, but I'm saying, yes, Lord, you believe that the work that I do is valuable, that I bring a lot to the table, and that it will be rewarded financially at a high level in a way that would be very satisfying and thrilling to me. And so it's really, um, yeah, like, if there was, I want you to imagine if there was a set of lights and we were all on like the red light and we were all lined up together. And I know my destination, I know where I'm heading, that I am aligning with the thoughts of God and what He said about me, that I'm a high earner and that the work that I do is really valuable. And so when I've been thinking about putting together, new packages and pricing and offers and what experiences I would include to invite people into, which would demonstrate that level of value, because I have realigned what I believe is my true value and what I can offer to others to elevate them and to kind of like send them off onto a new trajectory. And so this is why I know that over the coming days and weeks and years that my work is going to increase in value. That right now, the inner work that I've been doing is going to, I don't like using the word manifest, but we can use it here, is going to manifest in a return. I have done a lot of inner work, and I know that that inner work is going to shine in an outward display of like the glory and the things that God's put in me that would bring hope to other people. And that, yeah, so it's really this like massive identity shift, where I can just say, oh my goodness, like God loves me and He thinks that I'm so valuable, and He believes that the work that, I'm doing and I'm about to do is very valuable. And then He's asking me to transfer that belief that He has in me to my work and that I can believe in it. And yeah, and then from that belief, I would actually go to market with mass confidence and this level of like self-belief, self-worth, self-image. Yeah, that is that I am an image bearer of God's glory and of what He's put inside of me. And even if somebody is not God-led or spirit-led, that this is really a message for anyone to really recognize. And, I'm that what you have is valuable. So I mean, we could camp out here for a week because I kind of have this inclination that if I was to sit across the table from you and have a coffee and we were to really drill down on this, I wonder if you would come into agreement with me and say, yes, Bonnie, what's inside of me is really valuable and worth to be and work so valuable that it could be highly paid for. So that is the belief and why people would come into like the House of Maestro, this immersion that I've, felt that God said, bring this forward, is that I'm going to hold a new standard of belief, like an umbrella, for you to come and just realign your self-image, your self-worth, and your self-belief so that you can get into step with the idea that you're valuable and what you have to offer is valuable, and that you could go to market with what's inside of you, what you already know. And so I don't know if you've ever, I don't know, maybe if you think about whatever your passion is or what you're interested in, and you saw someone else doing it who perhaps you admire, and you think, gosh, I could do that better. It's funny, my sister Jessica, we kind of have this joke because she's always like, oh, I could do that. Somebody's building a house, she's like, a girl's building a house, she's like, I could do that. Someone's changing a tire, she's like, I could learn how to do that. I could become a doctor. I could become an astronaut. So she has incredibly high self-belief. And so it's taking some of that self-belief and adding it to your self-worth and, how you see yourself, and then going to market with it, to charge, to receive, to be somebody who creates highly valuable work in the world that other people would actually want to pay for. And they'll be like, yes, I want to be into this, or put me on the wait list. If you're doing it, Bonnie, we know it's going to be amazing and we want to be part of it. So yeah, and even if somebody is not God-led and you're like not spirit-led at all, this is really just for a message for anyone. If you are a human walking around here on planet Earth and that you're just ready to recognize that what you have is valuable. Yeah, and so the first step is actually going to be going from, if you are a professional or an employee, or maybe a commission-based person, because even that can have a trap in your own personal identity and how you value your work or where your selling could be. And so if you can change some of your like subconscious patterns, beliefs around this and realign, you're going to position yourself so that you can actually, receive a lot of gold coins. Um, yeah, and just like, yeah, have that capacity in your own soul, in your own spirit, where you're like, I can actually, receive this, you know, basically what I've been designed, my output, and yeah, and I can receive it coming into my life. So, the people that I'm interested in working with, and, my kind of wheelhouse is really this idea around personal brand, where it's your own business and you're building something, and online, and whether it was like books or podcasts or thought leadership or intellectual property, and there's so many different ways you can take it, and it would come back to what interests you and what your passion is. But you have, made in the image of God abilities to create something from nothing, because that's what he did. He just spoke, and then, day one, he in 7 days of creation, he created something from nothing. So whether, you know, that might be something that, you're already doing, or you're like, I need to, relook at how that's coming forward in the world. Or whether it's just a product, an offer, it could be a piece of writing, some art. I know I have a friend called Marguerite from South Africa, told the story before, but she got prayed and prophesied over her on a like a Zoom, like a live call that we did, that she could paint, and she had never painted in her life. And then she did this beautiful painting, and I ended up buying it. And once it arrived and I showed my daughter's like, Mum, that painting, that's you. And it actually looks just like my Facebook. um, picture. And so through creative prophetic work, somebody called out this talent and gift that she had. And then I'm in New Zealand, and then I paid her money for it because I was like, I love this value that you've created, this beautiful picture. Not, I like honestly, I didn't know it was me, but then once we got the picture, I was like, oh my goodness, it's completely looks like it's the same dress, the same field. Yeah, and so yeah, we really yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, it's really just like going out into the world and that with this audacious confidence, and then you're saying, "Hello, I literally I made this from nothing." And yeah, and then it's fun because then you've got the marketing and you can decide how it all functions. There's like this huge creativity with it. And, I could give you the same recipe for, running some of this stuff and it would all look different. So, like if you were to run a podcast, it would, your voice is different, what you speak about, the stories, um, yeah, your curiosity, all of these things will shape it. And then also who would value it, who would value your thought leadership, who would value your work and what you're bringing forward. So, yeah, what else do I want to talk about? So, one of the biggest lessons, yeah, I'm really trying to learn is not to actually measure my life against someone else's assignment or their timeline. And so my responsibility is just really to steward what I'm working on and what's entrusted to me. And so, yeah, just circling back around to this, where I started at the start of this podcast, which is about being a photographer and someone paying me for my creative work. I'm really locking back into that and thinking, my creative output, sales, entrepreneurship, and then bringing it into this like true calling, this vocational calling. And it's the difference between having the mindset of someone who has a job versus someone who's creating their work. And so, I've kind of been wrestling for a long time with my self-worth, and actually, yeah, even like drawing a line in the sand and saying, my work that I can bring forth today is really valuable because sometimes we also think, oh, when I get another more qualifications or more experience, or when I feel better or I'm fitter or I'm slimmer, or we come up with all these things of delay that our work would be valuable then. And so your work is valuable right now if you'll bring it forth. And so, yeah, believing that what you carry has value, and then stewardship of those gifts. Um, yeah, what else do I want to say? Let me just think about this. Before anyone else invests in your work, buys your service, or says yes to your offer, you have to decide whether you believe what you carry has value. So I'll say this again, the first person who has to believe in your work is you. And if you're like, oh, I'm not quite there, I wouldn't want to do that, or my nervous system's stressed out, or whatever all these excuses are, that's why you would, you know, come into an immersion where you could elevate your belief. You could elevate your belief that your work is valuable. So, yeah, so it's really about belief, identity, and vocation, and then your contribution. Yeah, and so it's just yeah, brand new mindset, because it creates a lot of freedom for you to try new things. It's like, coloring outside the lines that maybe your life is not as, or your finances are not as constrained as they look. If you would come and believe that you've got value, innate value that has not been fully realized. Yeah, so then we'll so with this House of Maestro, we'll uncover the beliefs, stories, and patterns that have been keeping you playing smaller than your gifts deserve. And then we're going to build the structures that allow your work to match your value. And so this is where I really think that positioning is becoming. So yeah, we'll just discover what you're uniquely equipped to contribute, and then building that unshakable self-worth and then developing a body of work that's unmistakably yours and expressing those ideas with confidence. And so please listen on because I'm going to do in the next few weeks some podcasts around expression because that's really one of the main pillars for you to express your value, to express fully what you're carrying. And that there's what's so powerful. So yeah, it's authoring your work. And yeah, just imagining that you believe that what you've learned, what you've lived, what you've been entrusted with genuinely had value and what you create. So if you've been given something of value, the question isn't really whether you deserve to share it. The question is whether you'll steward it well. And so, yeah, I look forward to just exploring this more. And thank you so much for tuning in today. I am Bonnie Brown, if we haven't met. And I'm sitting in this beautiful room here, which has got the Anna Spiro design in the background. Can you see that? And she's my favorite designer. I thought that would be fun to pop that there. I'm kind of sitting in the room. Anyway, have a great day. Bye.